Traveling the world is a dream for many, but sometimes that dream can turn into a nightmare. Grace Millane was just 21 when she graduated from university and set out to explore the world. And while in New Zealand, she went on a Tinder date with a local man. They were seen kissing, cuddling, and laughing together. But after that night, Grace was never seen again. The next morning, he left his hotel room, not with Grace, but with a suitcase. Today, we're diving into the tragic case that shocked the world, the cruel murder of Grace Millane. Let's get started. This case actually starts in December 2018 in New Zealand, but the story truly begins in Essex, in the southeast of England. That's where local girl Grace Millane decided she wanted to travel the world. Born on December 2, 1996, to her mom, Gillian, and dad, David. She had two older brothers, Declan and Michael, and together they made up a super happy family. In fact, everything we know about Grace's childhood and upbringing is full of positivity. Grace was creative and outgoing, with a special talent for art. She loved painting and drawing, and she even ran an Instagram account called Art by Millane, where she shared her work. Tragically, the last photo she posted there was a painting of a skull with the caption, "Two can keep a secret if one of them is dead." It's a chilling foreshadowing of what would happen to Grace less than 2 months later. Now, after graduating in 2018, Grace decided to take a gap year, and in October, her parents dropped her off at the airport for her solo travel adventure. Grace's first stop was South America, specifically Peru. She was especially excited to visit the chocolate factories there because, fun fact, that part of the world produces half the world's chocolate. She also trekked to the ancient city of Machu Picchu, a journey that takes 5 days to complete. Grace joined a trekking group, made many good friends along the way, and celebrated with a group photo at the top. Despite having an incredible time, Grace made sure to stay in regular contact with her family back home. Her dad said they heard from her every day, whether it was a text, a FaceTime call, or some photos of her adventures. Staying in touch was comforting for everyone because, as much as Grace was enjoying herself, her family was worried. As exhilarating as solo travel can be, especially for a young woman in a foreign country, it's also risky. Solo female travelers can be more vulnerable to criminals, and Grace was aware of these dangers. But with her trekking group by her side, she felt safe and enjoyed her time in Peru. After Peru, the second leg of Grace's journey took her to New Zealand. She landed in Auckland on November 20th and set out to explore the entire country, starting with the North Island. She spent time island hopping, likely enjoying the stunning white sand beaches and clear blue waters. After 10 days of soaking in these picturesque scenes, Grace returned to the bustling city of Auckland on November 30th. She checked into Base Backpackers Hostel, a popular spot for travelers like her, with locations across Australia and New Zealand. Grace planned to stay in the city for a while, enjoying the urban experience after days of island hopping. To make the most of her time, Grace decided to meet some locals, hoping to get insider tips on the best spots in town, and what better way to meet someone than through a little holiday romance. Grace turned to Tinder, the dating app, eager to connect with someone, and maybe even celebrate her upcoming 22nd birthday on December 2nd with a special someone. She matched with a man on November 30th and made plans to meet up with him the very next day, her birthday eve. It was a quick turnaround, but time was limited, and Grace wanted to make the most of it. But little did she know, not everyone on dating apps has good intentions. Grace was about to learn this lesson the hard way. The date took place on December 1st, and the next day her birthday arrived. But instead of the usual flurry of updates and photos from Grace, there was nothing. No responses to the birthday messages flooding in, no FaceTime calls to her family, just silence. Grace's family, who were used to hearing from her daily, started to worry. At first, they might have chalked it up to time zone differences. After all, New Zealand is 13 hours ahead of the UK. But as time passed, their concern grew. Given all the information earlier, Grace was not one to ignore her loved ones, especially on her birthday. By December 3rd, Grace's family was in a full-blown panic. When they woke up that morning, she still hadn't responded to her birthday messages. By then, it was clear that she wasn't just too busy. Something was seriously wrong. Her family, growing more desperate, tried every way possible to contact her, but received no response. Finally, on December 4th, they filed a missing persons report with the Auckland authorities. Grace's case immediately became a top priority for the police. She was a young woman traveling alone in a foreign country, and now she was missing. The possibilities were terrifying. Had she gotten lost? Was she injured? Or worse, had something awful happened to her? With fears mounting, her picture and the details of her disappearance quickly spread across every news outlet, newspaper, and social media platform. The story captured worldwide attention. As the investigation progressed, Grace's father, David Millane, flew to New Zealand, arriving on December 7th. The journey from Britain to Auckland took over 24 hours, but he wasted no time joining the police to make a public appeal for Grace's safe return. He pleaded with the public to think back to the night of December 1st. Maybe someone saw something that could help bring his daughter back.
Thank you for coming today. As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December. And as a family, we've been extremely concerned for her welfare. Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter. Grace has never been out of contact for this amount of time. She's usually in daily contact with either her mother, myself, her two brothers, members of the family on social media. I don't know if you know, but Grace is on a year-long worldwide overseas experience. Grace started this travel journey in Peru in South America, and at the end of this was really looking forward to the second leg in New Zealand. She arrived here on the 20th of November and has been bombarding us with numerous photographs and messages of her adventures. We are all extremely upset, and it is very difficult at this time to fully describe the range of emotions we are going through. While we are very grateful for the media coverage both here and back home, we are finding this situation quite upsetting, and would sincerely hope that the media continue to respect our privacy. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to anybody who has seen, spoken to, or come into contact with Grace over the last few days, and to come forward with any detail, no matter how small, and contact the investigation team. Once again, I thank you all for coming.
New Zealand, known for its low crime rate and ranking as the 4th safest country in the world in 2023, was in shock. The idea that a young woman could simply vanish in the middle of a city was almost unthinkable. But despite this, Auckland's extensive CCTV network became a crucial tool in the investigation. The first place the police checked was Base Backpackers, where Grace had been staying. The cameras captured her leaving the hostel on the evening of December 1st for her date, but they never saw her return. The search for other CCTV footage to trace the rest of her night began immediately. Meanwhile, other officers scoured Grace's social media profiles for clues, and they stumbled upon something intriguing: a new comment on her profile photo on Facebook. The comment, left on the night she disappeared, was from a man named Jesse Kempson. He wrote, "Beautiful, very radiant," a compliment that caught the police's attention due to its timing. Curious, the police checked out Jesse's profile. He appeared to be a bit older than Grace, and his profile indicated he was based in Auckland. Perhaps he was someone Grace had met during her travels, someone who could provide insight into her disappearance, or maybe he was involved. The police knew they needed to talk to him. On December 5th, the police left a message for Jesse, asking him to contact them regarding Grace's disappearance. The next day he called back, confirming that he did know Grace because they had gone on a date on December 1st. However, Jesse said he couldn't discuss much over the phone since he was at work. The police asked him to come to the station later that day, and he agreed. When Jesse arrived at the station, he was cooperative and seemed genuine in his willingness to help. He patiently answered all the police's questions, starting from the very beginning of his interaction with Grace. At first, the police weren't particularly suspicious of him, as he appeared to be just another witness who might have some useful information. But despite his calm demeanor during police questioning, the truth about him began to unravel. He had matched with Grace on Tinder, where they quickly connected. Jesse made the first move, and their conversation led to a date on December 1st. They met at Sky City, a popular entertainment complex in Auckland, and enjoyed drinks and burgers at Andy's Burger Bar. Jesse claimed they had a great time, but after parting ways, Grace unmatched him on Tinder the next day, which confused and offended him. He told the police he stayed out drinking alone after their date, eventually returning to his hotel room, though he had no memory of how he got there due to his intoxication. Despite his blackout, he confidently answered all the police's questions, maintaining that he had nothing to hide. He even volunteered his DNA, which the police requested as part of their investigation. However, Jesse's composure cracked when a police officer left the room. He anxiously asked if he was being arrested for something he didn't do. The officer reassured him that this was merely a missing persons investigation, but Jesse's panic hinted at something deeper.
Not yet. She may be alive and well.
Okay.
But she might also be dead. Okay? And it could be that you've done it.
Moments later, after being left alone in the interview room,
Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
It's like, holy shit.
As the investigation continued, police uncovered more of Jesse's lies. He had claimed to be a lawyer to one officer and the manager of Woolworths to another, neither of which was true. In reality, Jesse was unemployed, often lying and conning his way through life. He had recently been fired from a call center job for faking sales by calling his own phone, and he was living in a hotel, likely due to his inability to rent an apartment on his meager income. Jesse also had a history of lying to impress women he met on dating apps, claiming connections to gangs or even pretending to have cancer. Many women had ghosted him after realizing his lies, but Grace, unaware of his past, had agreed to meet him. The turning point in the investigation came when the police presented Jesse with CCTV footage from the morning after his date with Grace. The footage showed Jesse leaving his apartment at 8:14 a.m., contradicting his claim that he woke up around 9 or 10 a.m. hungover. Even more suspicious, when Jesse returned to his apartment shortly after, he was carrying a suitcase, a detail that set off alarm bells for the investigators. When confronted with this evidence, Jesse's story changed. He admitted to going out that morning to buy a suitcase because he was planning to move out of the hotel. Despite trying to appear cooperative, his changing story and the suitcase raised serious suspicions. The police were now convinced that Jesse Kempson had something to do with Grace's disappearance. But despite their growing certainty that Jesse was involved in Grace's disappearance, the police were still trying to figure out the best way to handle the situation. They had to move carefully, ensuring they didn't spook him into clamming up or evading further questioning. On the third day, the police secured a search warrant for Jesse's hotel room, an action that would soon prove crucial. When the police searched Jesse's hotel room, what they found was horrifying. Initially, there was nothing obviously amiss. No large blood stains, no signs of a struggle, nothing that immediately suggested something terrible had occurred. But the police knew they needed to dig deeper, so they employed chemical testing techniques like luminol. If you've ever watched shows like CSI, you're likely familiar with luminol. It's a chemical that can reveal traces of blood, even if it's been cleaned up, by making it glow under a UV light. When the police used luminol in Jesse's hotel room, they uncovered something chilling: footprints across the carpet left by someone who had stepped in blood and tracked it all over the room. They also found small splatters of blood on the hotel fridge, an unsettling discovery that hinted at something far more sinister than a simple accident. Further analysis of the blood confirmed it was female DNA. While the tests couldn't conclusively identify the blood as Grace's due to the cleanup, it was highly suggestive that it belonged to her. After the discovery of blood evidence in his hotel room, Jesse Kempson was arrested just 2 days after his first interview, now on suspicion of Grace Millane's murder. In his second interview, Jesse finally admitted that Grace had come back to his hotel room after their date and that something had gone terribly wrong. Now that he was coming clean, or at least appearing to, he started his story from the beginning, contradicting everything he had previously told the police. He recounted how they had a few drinks at Andy's Burger Bar, then moved on to a Mexican restaurant for more drinks, and later to another bar, possibly a blues bar, where they continued drinking. CCTV footage confirmed they were all over each other during this time, looking very much like a couple having a great time. Grace appeared to be happy, leaning into Jesse, smiling, and enjoying his company. She felt safe with him, as evident by how close they were throughout the night. At one point during the date, Grace texted a friend expressing how well she clicked with Jesse and how excited she was. Tragically, this was the last time her friends heard from her. After leaving the final bar, the pair headed back to Jesse's hotel, still physically close, with Jesse's arm around Grace as they walked. Once they reached the hotel, more CCTV footage captured them in the lobby and elevator, holding hands and looking affectionate. This footage would be the last time Grace was seen alive, as she never left that hotel room. Jesse then described what he claimed happened in the hotel room. According to him, they began kissing, and things got heated. Grace allegedly brought up the book 50 Shades of Grey, a popular erotic romance trilogy that delves into BDSM themes. Now, in case you're not familiar, BDSM stands for bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. Jesse claimed that Grace expressed interest in exploring similar kinky stuff and asked him to engage in more violent sexual activities. He stated that initially the sex was normal and placid, but then Grace allegedly asked for bondage and to be bitten. Jesse claimed he was hesitant at first, but Grace insisted, saying they were in the moment and should just go with it. He further claimed that Grace asked him to pin her arms down and squeeze them tighter, indicating that she wanted to escalate the intensity of their encounter. Jesse's account suggested that the entire situation was consensual and that Grace had initiated the more extreme activities. According to him, Grace had asked for choking during their sexual encounter, a claim that remains unverified and is highly dubious given his history of lies. Additionally, after their encounter, Jesse allegedly got up and went into the shower. He claims he was so drunk that he fell asleep standing up, something most people find hard to believe. When he awoke, he was still in the shower, dried off, and crawled back into bed. Incredibly, he says he didn't check on Grace. He didn't turn on any lights or speak to her. He assumed she had left when he didn't feel her beside him. It wasn't until the next morning, when he found her lifeless on the floor with blood coming from her nose, that he realized something was gravely wrong. He tried to wake her by yelling and shaking her, but it was no use. The blood, the coldness of her body, none of this registered as an emergency to him until it was too late.
British backpacker Grace Millane was killed by pressure to her neck, according to an expert Crown witness. The forensic pathologist who carried out the post-mortem examination on Grace Millane's body was in the witness box today in the trial of the 27-year-old accused of her murder. The Crown's case is that the accused strangled her in his central Auckland apartment, but the defence says that her death was an accident during consensual rough sex.
Jesse describes his reaction as complete shock and terror, but his behavior raises more questions than answers. Instead, he purchased cleaning supplies, a suitcase, and even rented a car to transport Grace's body. After buying all these things, he went back to his hotel room, where he began the grotesque task of stuffing her body into a suitcase he had just bought. He told the police it was a traumatic experience for him, claiming he vomited several times due to the horror of the situation. As he contorted and pushed Grace's body into the suitcase, he kept repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." The next morning, around 6 a.m., he was seen leaving his apartment, wheeling out 2 large suitcases, one of which contained Grace's body. What was in the other suitcase remains a mystery, but it's likely he had cleaning supplies or perhaps Grace's belongings. Her handbag and phone were never found, hinting that he disposed of them. Jesse loaded the suitcases into his car and was caught on CCTV, buying a spare tire about 10 minutes later. 3 hours later, he returned to his hotel barefoot and covered in mud, suggesting that his shoes were likely ruined during his cleanup. He was also spotted wearing a different outfit, which he had presumably had dry cleaned. Surveillance footage also captured Jesse at a self-service car wash, scrubbing mud off his rental car before returning it. Throughout this entire ordeal, Jesse appeared unnervingly calm and composed, a stark contrast to the severity of his actions. Ultimately, Jesse's meticulous but flawed attempts at covering his tracks were undermined by the extensive CCTV footage. Charged with Grace's murder, he didn't resist arrest. With such overwhelming evidence, he had little room to argue. One day after his arrest, Jesse led the police to Grace's body, which he had buried in the Waitakere Ranges, a scenic, remote hiking trail about 32 kilometers from Auckland.
I went to the warehouse at the atrium, and brought a suitcase. I went back and I was just in shock, because it just didn't seem right. I left to go and get cleaning products. So I messaged a friend and said I'll meet you at Revelry. After finishing drinks with her, I got back to city life. And the whole time I just kept saying, "I'm sorry." And then I went downstairs and I grabbed the porter thing and I put the suitcase on top of the porter thing. I drove the hire car into Wilson's car park and parked it. I woke up the next day at about 5 a.m. and drove the car out to Cumu at first. I picked up a shovel from ITM at Cumu. I ended up driving towards the Waitakeres. I went into the bush. I dug a hole. I went and got the suitcase and I covered the hole. And then I drove.
Where is her possessions?
I threw them in the rubbish.
Whereabouts?
Albert Park rubbish.
Right. So what items of her property have been disposed of in Albert Park?
Everything.
All of her clothing?
Everything that was in the room.
Right. Whereabouts did you clean the car? The outside of the car?
I think it was in Henderson. I don't know West very well.
Okay. And what did you use to clean the car?
A water blaster thing from a car cleaning place.
Did she have any injuries?
Not that I can remember. I was just panicking.
Did you inflict any injuries on her that caused her to die?
No.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. And you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane on or about the 2nd of December.
Okay.
You understand?
Yep.
Did you intend to cause her death?
No.
Are you ready to take us to where she is?
Yeah.
In Jesse Kempson's trial, he pleaded not guilty, claiming Grace's death was an accident during rough sex. However, the autopsy revealed 9 fresh bruises on Grace, consistent with being restrained, and her death was due to prolonged neck pressure, not a quick accident. Jesse's defense argued that Grace's interest in BDSM implied consent, but the evidence suggested he applied fatal pressure intentionally, contradicting his claim. And we're not done yet because the trial also highlighted disturbing aspects of Jesse's behavior. He was seen calmly dealing with Grace's body and later engaging in violent porn, showing no remorse. He also took intimate photos of Grace and researched ways to dispose of her body. His post-murder actions, including going on a date with another woman while Grace's body lay nearby, further showcased his disturbing nature. Finally, Jesse was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 17 years. The trial exposed his history of violence, including previous assaults, and this case led to a change in the law in England and Wales, making rough sex an invalid defense for violent crimes. In Grace's memory, the charity Love Grace was established, providing essential items to women in need. And in memory of Grace, let's make sure no one else suffers like she did. If you love to travel, whether you're a woman or a man, be careful and don't trust everyone you meet. Sometimes people who seem nice can actually be very dangerous. So, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It helps my channel out a lot. See you next time.